Yo, what is going on, everyone? It's your boy, Gsluke, here with our Round 3 live stream for the Arnold Palmer Invitational. Gonna get you guys ready for all your prop and betting exposure here with any of your questions and bets you want to deep dive down there in the chat. Of course, a look at the weather report, some of the averages out there from rounds number 2, round 1, if you're looking at the live golf stuff. And we're not just gonna keep it to the PGA Tour here. We're gonna go through the live golf stuff that starts in just over an hour. We got some DP World Tour action overnight, and the PGA event and the Puerto Rico Open. Now, no board yet for the Puerto Rico Open, so we'll have to stay tuned, see if we get anything over there on that side. But everything's on the table. Looking forward to our moving day exposure. I see we already got a bunch of you tryhards down in the chat as well. So first thing I ask is that you guys smash the like button as you come in here, and of course, say hi down there in the chat as well. We got Mark down there, Michael as well. Of course, appreciate you giving me the shout out there on those plays. What's going on, Jordan? You asked about Scotty and Ludwig. They're definitely not out of it at -1. What's going on, MN Holland? Also Frank down there as well. We got Pat and a few more questions about the Showdown stuff. I will say, Pat, I do have a whole live stream already up on the Ship It Nation YouTube channel where you can get all the Showdown tips, but you'll have to let me know if there's anything you're looking for in particular. So any specifics, I'll definitely go over for you. But if you're looking for a general breakdown, definitely check out that entire live stream. But let's talk about what we got here in terms of a board. So we've got the regular PGA board, which is over here. Now, if they post anything for the alternate event, it'll probably be birdies like they did the first few rounds. Nothing up there quite yet. But if we go over here to live golf, that starts at 11:15. So I'm there just over an hour from now. We also have the Euro golf stuff over here with some of the players for the Joburg Open. And a lot of that posted on Underdog. So a lot that we can go through here. First off, with some of these scoring averages. So we actually have to zoom out here because there's so many to go through. And up top, you got the API Joburg Open down there at number 2. So we're going to take these piece by piece and kind of go through them, starting with first the API. So API round number 2 played a lot easier than what you had for round number 1, which was completely weather-based, and it was also totally expected. Played a little bit under par as a par 72. Birdie average about 3.7 per round, which was about a birdie higher than what you had for round number 1. And then your bogey average went down about a bogey per round as well. So, when you have the birdie average going up a birdie, you have the bogey average going down by a bogey per round. Right? That's going to make a pretty drastic impact when it comes to your scoring average. So fairway average went down a little bit. Also, your green regulation average went up a little bit compared to round number 1. But these averages are going to be pretty spot in line with what you can expect for tomorrow. Now, you do have the moving day pins, which are going to change things up a little bit. Some easy, some hard out there in places. But these averages going to be relatively useful out there for moving day. Now, some of these other ones we're going to circle back to a little bit later. Maybe not going to do as much of a deep dive over here with these other 3 events, but going to be helpful when we go through those different boards. Now, the weather over here for this event, you'll see that it looks relatively calm. Now, it's not going to be as calm, I'd say, as what you had for round number 2, especially out towards the last maybe 3 hours of play tomorrow, where it looks like the winds kick up ever so slightly. But for the first, let's say, 4 to 5 hours of play, it looks absolutely ideal. So though some of these pin locations you'll see are going to be pretty tricky, that's why I think the averages are going to be pretty consistent. Now, in terms of these pins, we're not going to go hole by hole just because it is getting a little bit late here, and I've already gone through them and have a really good idea of what to expect. But holes like 3, right, a good example of a more difficult pin location. I would say that holes like 17, 16, even 18 really stand out as difficult pin locations. 8 is probably the hardest that you have at that sort of hole. 11's pretty tucked as well. Let's see, what other ones are close to water? 13 is tucked near the water on that sort of green, but 13's a wedge. It is a front pin location that you can get close to. You have ones like 10 that they might even move the tee box up on to make it a drivable par 4. That one's up there in that front right corner. Hole number 4 is a par 5. That is a front right corner, by far the easiest pin that you have at that hole. 6 is a front left pin, also an eagle pin over there at that par 5. So you have a good amount of easier holes, like even 11, though it's tucked near the water, it's a front pin location and it makes it a little bit more accessible. You're going to have that risk reward aspect going. So I would say if there's any change based on these pin locations out here to the averages, is that I think that you might see more birdies and also more bogeys or worse per round. Those moving day pins are supposed to be more volatile by nature, and I think that's what you're getting. I think you're going to get more water balls for sure, especially with some of the back 9 pins. They're especially close to those water hazards, but it wouldn't surprise me if that birdie average went up a little bit as well. And it's not like the pins for round 2 were brutally difficult. A few of them, like hole number, was it 15, was especially difficult, I'd say, out there for today. But you got some of those out there as well. So that's why I think it'll be pretty consistent out there from day to day. We could use that over there in our analysis. So the first thing we're going to do for slip is we're going to try and find a pairing here for Daniel Berger. Now, I've already entered 4 slips at this point. So I've already got 8 props posted over there on my Patreon page. But we're going to make the pairing for this something that I haven't already entered. So I'm going to try and find a 5th piece of exposure to go out there and enter myself. And the first one I want to point out here would be this over on Daniel Berger birdies. And it was something that I was considering taking before we got on the live stream here. Average, just to go back to that, was 3.7 per round. So if I think it goes up just a little bit, which I would say that there's a chance that it does, maybe it goes to like 3.8 per round, he'd have to gain 0.2 to the field. So, and if you take a look at his averages from last year, you'll see that he was a slightly above average birdie maker, ranked number 69 on all the PGA Tour in the category, which, you know, it is an elite tier stuff, right? It's about average in this sort of field. But last year was not his best year, right? He did not have a lot of his top level finishes. He has started the season a lot better than what you had for most of 2024. So I would argue that he's closer to like maybe a top 40, maybe a top 30 player when it comes to his birdie a better percentage of late, which is why I think that this is a decent over, right? Because if he goes from just like maybe an average birdie maker to a well above average birdie maker, that's where his projection goes from maybe like 3.8, 3.9 per round to over that 4 mark, and makes it really playable over here for this projection. So I was looking at my projection, actually ran his in particular before we got on here, and I have him at 4.05 birdies for birdies are better per round, which if I can get a guy to 4 over here at a 3.5 line, that's normally where I go out there and play him. So the thing that also put him over the edge when it came to that projection is he had a really good day when it came to the ball striking today. So if you take a look at his stats from round 2, just in particular, gained 2 strokes off the tee, just under a stroke over there on approach. And he's also a player that has an early tee time. So he's going off at 10 a.m. local, which is, I believe, the 3rd group out there for tomorrow. In fact, just to double check on that, he is the 5th group out over there at 10 Eastern time. I thought it was 9:40 going off first, but that's just when Xander Schauffele is teeing off. He's not the first group out. But yeah, a player that should have some soft greens, relatively calm conditions for the entire day. And now we just got to find a pairing for him. And luckily for us, we do have this whole live golf board to go through. Already a few props that I've taken over here on this side, some Euro golf stuff as well. So before we actually go through a few props, try and find a pairing here, I am going to give you guys a synopsis of the stat averages, and we're going to go through the weather a little bit. Now, we're going to keep it quicker than what we did for the PGA, but I want to make sure we're all on the same page, right, when we go through the prop stuff. Like button smashed. You love to see it. Any of you jabronis that haven't already done so, let's get to it, right? We're already, like 10, 15 minutes in here. Let's get the job done. Little dive on deep on Burns. I'm assuming you mean a deep dive, not a little dive out there on Burns. Maybe you mean a quick one. So Sam Burns, he got really lucky with the short game today. So round number 1, it was actually an issue for him. I guess I shouldn't say that. He had a pretty good short game day round number 1, but today he also gained over 2 strokes with the putter. So I would say that he's just getting a little bit too lucky for my liking with the short game categories. He did lose around the green today, which I don't know. You don't want to look into that one all too much, but the putter can't sustain him for all 4 rounds. He's, obviously not going to lose those 6 strokes gained on approach again. Was better today, right? Going out there and getting into the positive, but he's going to start to have to gain off the tee. He's going to have to try and keep that consistent with the iron play. If he does that, I mean, he could go out there and make some birdies. He could have himself a weekend, but the issue is that he's been so inconsistent to this point, right? He's been hit or miss in almost every single stat category. Weather stacking, etc. Yeah, make sure to check out the live stream. I'd say I go through all of that in like a 40-minute detail. So, the answer here wouldn't really do it justice. You got a 3X in Showdown that had your boy in it and had a day. There you go. And is your boy Keegan, I would guess. Out there in lineups, he's an absolute stud, if that's who it was. You have an outright on Lowry. Do you think he'll hold on? So I think he's got a chance to. I mean, he's in first place, right? So what are we to say, right, that he's not going to hold on? I've got to say, though, that after 2 rounds, a lot of guys don't end up holding that position. But he's in the best position of anyone in the field to go out there and get the job done. So for your sake, I hope he goes out there and he can cash that out for you. I do have some guys chasing him down myself. I've got a Rory outright and a Wyndham Clark. So it should be a fun weekend. Hopefully one of us is happy, right? I'd be happy if at least one of those 3 win out there on our cards. You're saying Im and Day. Yeah, I wasn't sure what you were saying there, but Im and Day, absolute studs. Yeah, we talked about them on the stream too. Day, the course history guy, Sunjay, due for a little bit of regression. I'm glad that you're able to take advantage. So let's find some pairings out here for these. So let's go through these averages. First off, we got this Joburg Open. So you can see the average out there from round number 2 was just a little bit under par. That's before the cut line. So you got to keep in mind that some of those lower tier players, the outliers, were really impacting that scoring average. Data Golf has the projected average at -1 over there for round 3. Part of that's the talent gap difference, I would say, but also it's probably comes down to the pin locations in a moving day setup. And if you take a look at the weather, we're not going to bring up the actual golf course because I don't really feel like zooming in and finding it. But what you'll see if you take a look at the GFS model, which is the most accurate, I'd say, outside of the United States, is that there's some wind out there, about 9-10 miles an hour sustained, but it's nothing that's going to blow these guys off the golf course. So I think it might play about half a stroke under par, maybe the whole stroke under par, like Data Golf was saying. I think a lot of that comes down to those outliers and how that's going to impact the scoring average. But when we go over here to this prop board over here for the Eurogolf side, it's the same pricing as what you had for days 1 and 2. And conditions wise, I think it's the same, if not just maybe ever so slightly more difficult conditions wise. But scoring, like the actual scoring average, I would expect to get better, right? Even if it is slightly harder scoring. A lot of that due to the field, right? Getting some of those outliers out of there. So some 68.5s there, I think could make sense out there for unders. In fact, one of the 68.5s I took for an under, and then also one of these guys at 69. But as I said, I want to try and make it something that I haven't already entered that we go out there and pair it up with. And I was looking at this earlier and I didn't see anything that really stuck out as value. So I did want to say that I think some unders make sense over here on the Euro Golf side. And I guess if you want to see the 2 that I took, they're on the Patreon page, of course. So I'll link in the description to go out there and check that out. But we're probably going to do our pairing over here on the Live Golf side. So for Live Golf, to go back to these averages, that's the 3rd one down here. You can say it played about 1.5 under par. So it's a par 70, just a hair over 68.5 strokes would have been your scoring average that you see there. And your birdie average was about 4 per round. Now, what's worth noting about this golf course in this event is that it was extremely soft. They had rain just before the event started, and it was so soft that they actually played harder because of how soft it was. Now, a day later, it's still going to be extremely receptive, but they were mentioning towards the end of the broadcast that scoring is probably going to get even better as the week goes on because the greens will still be like dartboards, be able to go out there and throw shots close, but it's going to be easier from tee to green. Like out there in the fairways, the rough's not going to be as heavy. You're going to hit the ball further when the air isn't as humid, isn't as dense as what it was out there for round number 1. So I think the scoring average could very well get closer to 2 strokes under par. And they were already making a bunch of birdies, which a 4 birdie average at a par 70, it's a par 70 setup with only 2 par 5s is already relatively high. But it wouldn't surprise me if this was over 4 birdies per round. Now, when you take a look at the birdie board, this were the 2 props that I took are 2 overs on birdies over here for round number 2. There are some obvious names that you could take. Now, there's some slappies like, Gooch has been playing like a slappy, like guys like DJ's been out of form as well. But it's so hard not to just point out I'm probably just going to tell you guys a few of the guys I ended up taking. But like, I guess I'll just say it, like John Rahm, like obviously at 5 birdies, he's like by far the best birdie maker that you have on the Live Tour. He was like one of the overs that I took for an over on birdies. And the reason for that, by the way, he averages 1.7 birdies are better gained per round over there on the Live Tour, which means on average, he makes 1.7 birdies more per round than what you have for the field average. So if the field average, I think, is going to be 4, maybe even a little bit over 4 per round, that puts him at like 5.7 birdies. Now, he's been on a crazy start to the year, right? So maybe we put him back down to earth a little bit. But even if we put him at a 5.5 projection, which would be conservative based on how he's been playing this year, it'd be value for the over there at 5. So, I guess you could make that the pairing for Daniel Berger, but I'm going to find something else to mix in so I can actually add another slip. But it wasn't just that prop that ended up mixing in. There was another over on birdies that I took as well. And then before we actually find that pairing, I do want to mention the Puerto Rico Open stuff. No board posted yet, so we're not going to have to deep dive it, or at least we can't. I would love to actually over here in stream, but we don't have it available yet. It played minus 2.12, so a little harder than round one. Round one was closer to 2.8 under par, and your birdie average went from closer to 4.7 per round down to 4.3, which partially was due to the rain during play. You had rain during the morning wave and the PM wave during play today, but that was also the case round number one. So partially, I think it was pin locations that made it a little bit harder. And I would say for round number 3, let's bring up the Rio Grande forecast real quick. So this will be for Puerto Rico. Again, we're not going to click on the actual golf course, but we'll get a really good idea for how it's going to be in general. You can see it's kind of windy. It looks like we had for the DP World Tour forecast, like 7 to 10 miles an hour sustained wind, pretty much no gusts. Over here on the forecast, I think it's going to play to like a minus 2.5 scoring average. And what we have to remember about these averages too is that it was before the cut line. So if it's going to play easy, maybe it's even close to a minus 3 scoring average. So with the moving day pins, the cut line happening, a pretty decent weather forecast, I think you're going to see some scoring over there at the Puerto Rico Open as well. But unfortunately, as I already mentioned before, they didn't have anything posted. So, if they had some guys at 4.5 birdies that were half decent birdie makers, I don't really have an idea off the top of my head who they would even post. But like Pearson Cootie, for example, he's my single bullet outright that I took over there on that side. They post a Pearson Cootie line over there at 4.5 birdies, and I'll 100% go over there and take the over on that. But because we don't have the board quite yet, we're gonna have to deal with what we have. And I think because the Live Golf locks kind of soon, it might be best to do that one, right? Because that's what we can lock in right now. Where did we leave off on chats? Let's see. Rory Birdie a better matchup. So let's see who he's going against. Don't remember that one off the top of my head. He's going against Sam Burns. So yeah, Burns getting lucky with the putter. Unfortunately for Rory, though, he had the same thing happen today. He gained over 3 strokes with the flat stick in round number 2. So yeah, that's probably a stay away for me, just because Sam Burns is an extremely high birdie percentage player. And the reason why I say stay away, right, not like a lean over or a lean under, is that these matchups are usually priced pretty well. And you got to remember as well that they has the 0.5 on it. So these aren't like the 0.0 matchups where if you tie, it ends up pushing. If they end up tying on their projection, that would be an under out there towards Sam Burns. So just keep that in mind for that one. You're loving some Burns over 3.5 birdies. Yeah, where's that at? I'm guessing that's an underdog line, not posted on Prize Picks. So let me actually bring up underdog so I can check that myself. If it's over there, I'm assuming that they have some kind of multiplier going out there on that spot, which I'm not against going out there and playing, but let's see. Good old Sam Burns. So yeah, he's only a 0.9x multiplier though. You know what? I usually don't like the multipliers, but in this case, I'm not against it. So maybe we can find a pairing up for that one as well, but let's not bite off too much quite yet. Maybe we'll find something for that in a second, but yes, I do like that one. Let's see. What are we thinking for JT at 7.5 fairways? I would lean under, if anything, Jaden. So the average is about 8 fairways per round, but JT is very inaccurate off the tee. Somebody that kind of sprays it, as I would say. So I'd be a little careful about that one. So you have a question about a morning advantage. So yeah, when we were looking at the weather, it does look a little bit calmer earlier, but it does remind me, I do have my projections for round 3 showdown posted. So I know we had Pat in the chat before asking about some of the Showdown stuff. Just a little friendly reminder, a little PSA for all of you guys that are here live, maybe watching this on replay. On my Patreon page is, of course, where I post all of those slips, all those prize picks props that I was mentioning before that I've already entered. You can find those over there, but also these spreadsheets. And you can see a lot of it is censored on there because I've got to keep it behind the paywall. But every single player in the field is projected. And not only do I give you guys my player pool, got projected ownership for DFS, also the fantasy points to go out there and use in your process. But I've got these player pool tags, which gives you not only who I'm using, but why I'm using them in lineups. And, it's become a real big hit over there on my Patreon page, giving you guys that extra insight on top of my entire 150 max pool. So if you're here for DFS, I do have an entire live stream on the Ship It Nation channel covering that, but do also remember that I have all of this extra content on my Patreon page, going over all the Showdown stuff for rounds 2 through 4. So that was a little commercial break, I guess, that I needed to get in there, which I completely forgot about. And luckily, your question reminded me. So thank you. API Fanduel has strokes lines that look 0.5 to 1 stroke too high. Yeah, I saw that on a few of them, Mark. A lot of the guys I would want to play, though, so like they had some 72.5s on like Wyndham Clark, for example. Like he was 72.5, but minus 150 for the under. So if you can find a way to play that, or if you're just comfortable eating the juice on like a minus 150 prop, then for sure you can go for it. You're loving the Patreon, you said, Jack. What does the due for short game regression mean? So yeah, good question, Jack. It means that around the green and putting did not go well for them the day before, and that they're due to have a better performance. So just to show you like an example of what that kind of looks like over there with the shots gained metrics, if we go over here to round 2, and it's for the rounds before that's in reference to, somebody like a Scotty Scheffler, for example, that lost about 3 strokes with a putter, you could say that he's due for some short game regression because he's not likely to lose 3 strokes in that category. Now, you're looking at Taylor Pendrith, where he'd probably be the best example of that. He lost 4 strokes between his around the green and the putting, but that's what those players are. And I would say that that's maybe the one tag that I use just a little bit less than some of the other ones because it's not my favorite play. I really like the ball strikers, which you could probably tell if you're on the Patreon page. A lot of my player pool are the guys that ball struck it well. And yeah, that's another one of them, though. Let's cook up a nasty 2-legger. Yeah, we've already got a few in there simply, but yeah, we got to find a good one for Daniel Berger here. Great, makes sense. Damn, you just noticed the tabs on the sheet. Yeah, dude, it's a game changer, I think. It really, it's not even just who I play, right? It's what I'm looking for in players, which I think can really help people. So yeah, let's find the comp. We're going to make 2 two-mans, by the way. I know we just had that comment there. So let's find a pairing here for D-Berg. So we could just make it a PGA prop, or we could go with the live one. If we were going to go with the PGA only prop, I took a bunch of unders on pars or better. So I know we didn't look at this category before, but there are some guys here at 14.5 that are far from elite tier bogey avoiders that I think you could take for an under. And like the average, I think it's going to be close to like 3.3. Maybe it goes up to like 3.4 per round. Like I said, there are a few dicey pin locations that I could see tricking players up, but there are 2 guys on this board, and I can't tell you them because, again, I can't give you all the props that I've given to my Patreon people. I promise you, we'll find something to go out here and take for a 2-man. But there are 2 guys on here that rank outside the top 100 on tour in bogey avoidance that are like obvious fades. Like if they're outside the top 100 on tour to begin with, out there in that category, then you put them at a hard course like this at a signature field, right? That's why they were no-brainers for the unders on pars or better. And just to give you guys a little bit of a reference on where like the value could be in that category, if we go over here to bogeys, they do have those over here on Caesars William Hill. You see that a guy like Wyndham Clark, where's he at? Is he towards the bottom? I know I passed him. There he is. Windy C is minus 140 out there for his over at 3.5 bogeys. So like even a player that's an elite tier guy, right, in form towards the top end of the leaderboard, they have juiced well towards the over at that number. So imagine, right, a lower tier player that's not in as good a form going out there and fading that sort of guy. So just another example of a prop that I've already entered. But goddamn, we got to find something here. I'm very picky with my props, as you can tell. I spend a lot of time, right, trying to figure out what I enter, which is why it's not so seamless just to look at a board and figure it out. I was kind of hoping that we'd get some Puerto Rico Open stuff posted so I could try and get some exposure there. I was looking at the strokes board before for a few fades. So kind of like those pars or better, if we could find a scrub at like 71 strokes, I'd be thrilled about it. But
they've got no scrubs at 71, right? 71, they had Tommy Fleetwood, Xander Schauffele right there at 71 strokes, elite tier players at that sort of projection. So I do think maybe the best category for a fade would be this pars or better, just because of the deep rough. It's only going to get longer as the week goes on, or maybe even a greens and regulation prop, because the average is 10.3, might be 10.5 per round, I'd say, out there tomorrow. Some of these guys on here are not elite tier green and regulation players. Now, some of them are, like, for example, Corey Connors is, but he's up there at 11.5 greens. Also, Xander Schauffele would be an elite tier player there at 10.5. Now, I said I wouldn't give away like all the props that have gone out there and entered, but that is another one I've gone in there and mixed in myself. So I guess if you wanted to use that one as a pairing, you could do that as well. But once again, trying to find something original I haven't already entered. I was looking at this JT over at 4 birdies. And the thinking here with JT is that he's covered this the first 2 rounds. That's not like the main reasoning I want to get to it. It's how he's getting the job done. So if we go over here and just bring up Justin Thomas in particular, you'll see that round number 2 gained the 2 ball striking categories and then lost with the putter. Round number 1 gained in the 2 ball striking categories and then lost over there with the flat stick. And even without having his best stuff on the greens, he had 6 birdies or better round 1, and that was in the wind. And then today, he had 5 birdies or better, and once again, left a lot on the table when it came to that flat stick. So Justin Thomas at 4 birdies, I think there's a ton of push equity out there at that number. So that was the one thing actually holding me back from it, is that I feel like he's going to push more often than not, which is sometimes a negative EV move out there on these sort of props, especially when you have it less than a 3x payout, because they pay you 1.25x. If this one were to push the JT prop, and then you had the over on Daniel Berger hit, which is, again, the only hesitation when it comes to entering a 2-man slip with a 4 prop. So I do like that, though. I would definitely lean towards the over on JT. Stat-wise, he sets up pretty well. It is a moving day setup. He's starting a few shots off the lead, so he's got to go out there, be aggressive to try and make up some ground. Let's see, starting -3, so 5 shots off the current lead. I don't think he's going to be reckless, but, if he has a good number at a front pin location, Justin Thomas is the kind of player to go out there and take that on. So normally one of the better players you can target out there on moving day, that'll be the 2-man that we take over here on Prize Picks. So it'll be a PGA only slip, because I know a lot of you out there, right, really only follow the PGA Tour, especially if you're watching this after the fact, right? A lot of the DP World Tour stuff, live stuff is going to lock overnight, so you won't be able to go out there and tail it yourself. So go out there, check out these 2, right? They'll be locking tomorrow. You have a better chance to go out there and lock them in. The 3.5 for Daniel Berger, he should probably be like -150 for the over if he had a line over there in books. At the very least, he'd probably be like -135, I'd guess, out there if he had a line. This JT prop, he is at 4.5 on Caesars William Hill, but he is juiced way under. I think he was like -180 for the under. So that's why I think there's so much push equity over there at that sort of number. But I would lean over, if anything, right? I would not be taking the under over there at 4, just because he is a well above average birdie maker to begin with. And then you add on top of that the fact that he's playing so well this week out there with his irons. He's hitting the ball better than just about anyone in the field. In fact, if we go to rounds 1 and 2 and we sort it by shots gained to ball striking, he's the number 1 player in the field, like quite literally, right? No one is hitting the ball better than Justin Thomas right now. I guess that's the big X factor, right? Is you're getting the guy hitting the ball the best in the entire field. So yeah, that'll be the 2-man that we take over there. Now, we could try and get a little bit more creative with our pairing over here for Sam Burns. So I really like that prop, by the way, that somebody pointed out before. The issue is the 0.9x multiplier. But if we go to a sport, if we go over here to the other golf tab, and maybe take a live golf prop, or try and mix in something over here for the DP World Tour, we might be able to make it work out. So let me see what's going on in chat, and then we'll do that. Wish they had Glover on the board. Yeah, dude, his approach stats are crazy. And I'm assuming this is why you're mentioning this. Look at these stats. If you guys haven't already seen it yourself, gaining a shit ton on approach and then losing with the putter. And he birdied his last 3 holes today. So the guy's on just absolute fire heading into round 3, and lost a bunch of the putter today. So just, yeah, dude, if you're a big shots gained truther, if you're a big ball striking truther, I also wish we had some lines out there to post that with. Do I like Ludwig Parzer better for the lower at 15? Probably not, man, just because I think Ludwig sets up for this course so well. And he is, in my opinion, a top 3 player in the field. So not my bad. This guy says maybe pick before the stream. You know, dude, I'm just going to send you to Banland. I don't even get that shook up by these like trolls that come in here anymore. Dude, I have 4 slips in before I got on here, and I'm trying to add some more out here for the people on top of that. Maybe go watch another live stream then, because you're not welcome around here anymore. So I'll just send you to Banland. There has to be one every live stream that I sent out to the Shadow Realm. I don't know what you expected, dude. You're an absolute clown. What's going on, Kim? You said you like Willie Z for the over 3.5 birdies. Yeah, let's actually just bring up the birdie board over here on this site. There were a few that made sense. Like one of them was Tommy Fleetwood, but Fleetwood was like 0.8x or something like that, right? So like if you took these two, the payout would be like 2x, right? It's just like absolute trash to go out there and mix in. Does Willie Z, I'm assuming he doesn't have a multiplier, and that's why he maybe makes a little bit more sense. I typed in Willie, right? It's Will Zalatoris, right? It's not going to come up with a Willie. So yeah, he's at 3.5 and he's there at even money. I'm not against that one at all because he is an above average birdie maker. Last year was not his best stuff. So if we take a look at his averages, right, he was number 175 last year in that category. That's, I guess, the one data point that you would use against him, but he's a much better player now, right? He's in better form. This is a golf course that he tends to play very well at. I would lean on that over for sure. I like Berger maybe just a little bit more, but I think it makes sense. And trust me, I know, dude. Like that guy, by the way, he commented yesterday some like smart ass comment on the live stream. And then, by the way, he joined the Patreon page. So that guy just has a stick up his ass or something. And he respects my opinion enough to watch every live stream and join my Patreon page. But he posts smart ass comments like that. And guess what I'm doing as soon as I get off of this, by the way? I'm refunding him on Patreon and I'm blocking his ass because I don't want him seeing any of my content to go forward. And, you know, I'll refund him so that he can have his money. He can go on his way and not complain. But I have no interest, right, in giving that guy my plays and making him money long term. So it's just, trust me, it doesn't bother me that much. I just kind of laugh at it more than anything at this point. And I genuinely wonder, like, why people do that. Like, I guess they have nothing better to do with their time. So they choose to go out there and hate. So let me find a pairing for this, though. Let's ignore the hater, right? Let's not even give them any more light. What I was looking for this birdie lines is maybe we could find an over at 4.5, but that has the juice towards the over, right? That can give us a little bit of an extra payout because we do have that 0.9x multiplier over there, like a Sam Burns. One I was thinking about was a Ludwig. He's a very aggressive player, but look at this payout, right? Even with the multiplier for the over, they're still only given 2.43x. So that's almost unplayable. Guys, I'm not going to lie. I hardly play an underdog anymore because these lines, the payout structure is just terrible over here. I'll say I really like this Sam Burns one. Any of those other props that I've mentioned that I like, maybe you go out there and you pair up with Sam out there for a payout, that sort of thing. But I don't think we're going to make a slip over here just because like the payouts are terrible. Like anything we pick, I mean, we're going to have to anti-correlate it, right? If we're going to get any sort of decent payout over here, we're going to have to take a fade over there with it, which there are a few props that I think could make sense for fades, but geez Louise, like you have to force in anti-correlation on this site to have any chance at a viable payout. It's just not the kind of situation you want to be in. So kind of looking at these, Sanjay, I wonder what his line is over here. Let me see what Sanjay is for his strokes line. I guess he doesn't have one. What is he over here in prize picks? Is he also 71.5? Spell his name right so we can actually find it. So he's there at 71.5 on both sites. Reason why I said that is if you take a look at Wyndham Clark, which I believe has a line over here. He was like minus 150 for the over the last time that I checked. So I guess he's not over here on DraftKings now, but on other sites, he was like minus 150 for the over there at 71.5. Is like, if you're going to find a pairing for Burns, maybe you find a fade on one of these strokes lines, but I feel like that'd be forcing it in at that point, right? Like these lines, like I'd rather be taking overs on birdies for guys like Sam Burns. Like I think that makes a whole lot of sense with these moving day pin locations. Now, if you were going to fade anyone, it'd be a scrub that's maybe not in the best sort of form. So if we just isolate the strokes lines and then try and find maybe some of the shorter players in the field, they're kind of scrubs. Like a Daniel Berger, I know he's at 71.5 on both sites. Oh, look at this Grazerman line, 72.5. Isn't he way lower over here in Prize Picks? So he's 0.5 lower. So I wouldn't say that he's way lower, I guess, in terms of projection. Let me see if there's anyone else that's a 0.5 or even a full stroke discrepancy out there from site to site. I know there was a 0.5 difference on a few of them. Some of them do have the multiplier that had that 0.5 difference. Yeah, like Wyndham Clark being that exact one that I was thinking of. Yeah, maybe these two. Like a Grazerman under 72.5, or he's got to shoot even par to go out there and cover that. I mean, I think the scoring average is going to be a little bit under par, just like it was for today. Maybe worst case scenario, right? Even par, just a little bit over par out there for a scoring average. So you're essentially asking him to go out there and match the field. You know, he's been in form this week. He's been in form his last few starts out there on the PGA Tour. This is a big boy event, right? So it's not like it's a given that he's going to go out there and match the field average. But this kind of week, the golf course that is fitting his game, this is the kind of prop that I would take. Now, just like the other combinations that we were looking at, the issue is the payout here. So I think the best move would be to go over here and match it up with another sport that you're entering. So, you know, if you're entering NFL stuff, obviously that's not going on now, but like NBA, MLB, UFC for tomorrow, right? Maybe you're doing that sort of thing. NBA would probably be the sport that I'd try and pair it up with if I was going to go out there and enter it. But you can also go to some of this live golf stuff. So if you're over there on my Patreon page, you guys obviously know some of the other stuff that I've taken. And I already mentioned that I played this over on Jon Rahm. So if you guys are watching this live, this locks in about 40 minutes from now. So if you're watching this in replay, you might not be able to go out there and take Jon Rahm, but he'd be an example of a prop you could go out there and mix in with them and get a slightly better combination. So this would be 2.7x. It is going to be a little bit lower because of that 0.9x multiplier over there in Sam Burns. But that would be the best way, in my opinion, to go out there and play that sort of prop. It's just that if you use a birdie or better line with any other golf prop, they absolutely screw you on the payouts over here on Underdog. It's just something that they added to their payout algorithm. It's a kind of backwards. They need to fix it. To be frank, I think they get a lot more action out there on birdie props, and they went out there and fixed the payouts that they had for those kind of combinations. But yeah, that'll be a slip number 2 that we go out there and take for the stream. So it'll be these two over here on Prize Picks, over on Berger and JT, and then the over on Sam Burns for birdies paired up with Jon Rahm. And yeah, once again, if you're watching this on replay, I apologize if you can't get this Jon Rahm prop, but feel free to mix it in with any other sport or literally any prop period, right, that you're entering for tomorrow. Just maybe avoid the PGA stuff because literally I was trying all those, even fades, right? We're paying like 2.4x. I mean, you enter a different sport completely, right? You're getting 2.7x. It makes no sense that you'd get less for an anti-correlated slip. So just be smart about the exposure that you're going with. And you can have yourself a moving day. But let me see if there's any last second questions. If not, we're probably going to hop on out of here. No soup for you. Yeah, the soup Nazi. I know what you're saying. Ferdy says, you love that Underdog always gives us Anthony Kim lines. Yeah, dude. He had him on Prize Picks as well. I'm not sure if they yanked him off. But Anthony Kim is almost always a free fade. How does the multiplier go down with adding Fleetwood? Dude, that's what I mean. I don't get it. It makes no sense. They have broken payouts, and it's not, the strokes ones are a little bit better. They're not as bad, but as soon as you add a birdie line to a slip, and it's like even one, it can be like a 5-leg slip. You add one birdie line, your payout just goes to shit. Like, but just by adding one spot. No love for Henley this weekend. Not sure if you watched my Showdown stream, but we gave him some love over there, so you might want to check that out. And just because I don't mention someone here, right, doesn't mean that I don't have love for them, right? We're going through a prop board. I'm going through some of the better spots. JT 4.5 birds on Underdog is a 1.18x multiplier. He's 4 birdies on Prize Picks though, right? So we already entered a prop on that. If you want to go with it on Underdog, you can. What do I think about Schauffele birdies are better versus Hadwin? So yeah, Hadwin sucks. I'll just go ahead and say that right off the bat. I was actually looking at that matchup earlier. The only reason I didn't enter that, or at least I just chose to get a different prop for Xander Schauffele. So I think I already hinted at it, right? I took his over at 10.5 greens, and look at that, right? It already bumped up there to 11 now. So I guess, yeah, if you were going to try and get on the Xander Schauffele train a little bit late, maybe you do it over here with this birdie or better matchup. But yeah, dude, Hadwin, he is a lower tier player. The only reasoning that I could see for putting those two against each other, right, even with the 0.5, because there's a huge discrepancy in their birdie or better percentage, is that Xander's rusty, right? He's coming back from injury. But when you take a look at the stats for Xander Schauffele, he really doesn't look that rusty. He gained out there with his 2 ball striking stats today, did kind of carry himself with the putter, but it wasn't that bad, right? Like it was only 2 shots gained putting, and he is a good putter. And then if you take a look at round 1, it was the opposite, right? It was gaining a bunch out there in the 2 ball striking categories. I think that that's a decent lean, that birdie or better matchup. It's, he averages about 0.7 more birdies per round to begin with than an Adam Hadwin. So that makes up for that 0.5 there out there in the matchup. The issue, and I guess what Prize Picks is betting on, is that the rust is 0.2 birdies. But I would say that he doesn't look very rusty. So I agree with that. Alrighty, guys, that is all I've got over here for the live stream. It's getting late over here, and I might actually go up to the event tomorrow. I might go up there in person, try and sweat out some of these props myself. So if I'm going to give myself that opportunity, I got to get to sleep early, right? So I can wake up early and do so. But no tickets bought. So if I end up having that last second decision made, it's going to be literally wake up, buy tickets, drive up to the golf course, and see at it. So we'll have to see if I end up doing that. I'll obviously let you guys know over there on the Twitter X if I end up getting there in person. But either way, best of luck with all of your exposure out there this weekend, whether it's over there with props, DFS Showdown out there tomorrow. I hope you guys go out there and make it a good one. And of course, out there for the round 4 exposure, we're going to be doing a similar thing out there for Sunday. So make sure to subscribe so you don't miss all of that when it goes live for the last round. And as I mentioned before, for all the DFS and all the prop stuff that I'm going with, make sure to join the Patreon page. On there, every single slip that I'm entering, which at this point is 6 slips strong, I've gone out there and entered. Make sure to check that out over there. You'll get those as soon as they drop, so you can get all the props before there's any bumps. Some of the props we've gone over here, right, might have bumped by the time you're watching this on replay. To get those as soon as I'm getting to them before that happens, that's why the Patreon page is there, as well as for all the stat averages. So you guys saw those right throughout the entire video here. These stat averages, as soon as the round ends, they're posted over there on my Patreon, right, to give guys all the information you need to go out there with your bets. I also post weather reports out there for every single event. And of course, on the DFS side, I showed this one a little bit earlier, but that's also where we have the spreadsheet going as well. So, of course, completely uncensored over there for the Patreons, with all the player pull tags as well. But that's all I've got, as I mentioned. It's all the plugs out of the way as well, too. Best of luck, as I mentioned, and I'll see you guys out there tomorrow night.